This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. This is episode 4. Today we're going to talk about puppies. Before we get started, I just want to get some business taken care of. Please, if you're watching this or listening to this, go onto iTunes, go onto YouTube, review, rate, subscribe. That's going to help us get noticed. It's going to get more people to listen and watch and hopefully be able to help as many dogs as possible. News, we're going to have the new series come out hopefully within about a month. I'm going to start shooting on the 20th. It's called the Untrainables. It's going to be for Jukin Media on Facebook's new programming platform. So excited. This is what I've wanted my whole life. This is something I've worked so hard for. I'm finally having an opportunity to spread my message to a greater audience and hopefully help so many more dogs. This is so great. So stay tuned for that. I'll, of course, announce it more as the podcast goes on. And I think let's jump right into it. So we're going to talk about puppies, right? That's the foundation. This is where they are, a new clean slate, and where all of the good, bad, or whatever associations are being made, and it's going to set them up for the rest of their interactions for the rest of their life. When I get a puppy case, and unfortunately because I'm a problem behavior specialist, only about 25% of my cases are new puppies that the owner just has had the foresight to realize that it's probably good to create that foundation now while the puppy is most impressionable, or they have a puppy that seems to be a little bit more challenging than their past puppies or what they've tried just as their own. Because some puppies, they're just easy. They're wired to be a little less challenging. What you apply, with some of the information you just might read in books or online takes, and you raise your dog reasonably well. What are the most important things? So you got a new puppy, right? First of all is getting the right puppy, a puppy that's a good match for you. I would not recommend a working line Rottweiler for a very, busy family that isn't going to have a lot of time to put into the dog's training or exercise or socialization. They might want something that's a little bit more user-friendly. I'm not saying that dogs don't need training, exercise, and socialization. Most do, but some are a little bit more, I'd say, experience handler friendly than others as far as the breeds. Personality-wise, you can get a puppy within a breed that can be wired one way or another, although certain breeds do have a potential to have certain personality traits. They all are, at their base level, dogs psychologically. And this goes for mixed breed puppies too. So I would just, if you're thinking about a certain breed and you've done the research, find a high quality breeder. If you're trying to find a mixed breed puppy, I'm sure most of your shelters will have puppies that came in from a mother that was pregnant. You have a mother, that gave puppies, and the puppies were discovered, whatever it may be. So there's opportunities to get a good puppy right from the start if you don't want to, if you don't want an adult dog and you want to, and that's fine. I don't care. You get a pure breed, mixed breed, raise your dog right. You make them a good member of the dog world, and you're good. You're good to go. Your dog's happy, you're happy, and everybody enjoys. So puppy, you want to make sure you get a good sound puppy. So what is that? Well, if a dog's bred poorly or there's something wrong with the environment, maybe that'll be a factor. What I find is really a factor are puppies that are taken away from their litter mates prematurely. Anything before 8 weeks, and a lot of trainers and breeders and even vets suggests closer to 12 weeks. I'm saying 8 weeks is at least the minimum. Why? Because these dogs need to be imprinted and learn some life lessons from their mother, the litter mates, and also just to wean off of nursing. They have to learn how to kind of make that segue from being cared for and communicated to and taught how to navigate life by another dog, their mother, to now getting that role taken on by a human, which is a little bit different. It should be a little bit less connected, but also more all-encompassing, because we're going to be providing for them completely every element of what they need, from shelter to when they go to the bathroom to when they eat, for the rest of their life. So that is kind of a big jump for some dogs. And I find what really the worst thing is with puppies that are taken away from their litter mates too early or not exposed to other dogs soon enough is they don't have good bite modulation. And, a lot of puppies will bite, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is and how to deal with it. But this is different. I mean, I have actually permanent nerve damage from a puppy just like that. And I have been mauled. I'm sure in some episodes we'll talk about some of these stories of what's happened to me when I was less experienced and took some stupid chances. But this is a puppy. He had a little biting issue, but he just caught me really. He jumped up and got it, and he had that little razor, needle tooth, and it went in, hit a nerve, and I'm pretty fucked on my right thumb here. You hear that? Ooh, yeah, some action for you. Hope you got that. So anyway, that's a lot of these puppies. Some, again, require more of that, being taught from their mother and other dogs. But so it really, you have to wait. Don't be so excited, And if a breeder, worse than anything, if a breeder's willing to give up a dog too early, that's going to show you right there that they're not putting the dog's best interest first, and they're probably not experienced, which in turn means they're not probably breeding the best quality dogs. So with that, so you get a good dog, you raise it. Now, what are the most important things that you want to focus on day one? Potty training and getting your dog socialized to as much as you can as early as possible. So potty training. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I think we're going to do a separate podcast just on potty training, because with puppy, I want to give you kind of the general. But you want to start teaching your dog to go to the bathroom outside. You do not have to be afraid of your dog catching leptospirosis by walking out in your front yard or your backyard, or just putting some kind of outdoor space for your dog to go potty, so they start learning that outdoors is where you go, indoors is where you do not. That's where crate training can help. That's where structured intervals of taking the dog when to go out and rewarding them for that, and getting them to hold it when they're inside, and doing it on intervals based on their age and abilities, and getting that association dialed in. And as they develop that, you can start expecting more from them and taking them out less frequently. And dogs are pretty neat. They can go on command as long as they don't have a medical issue, and they can go kind of when it's time to go, if you give them enough time and they do it to completion to go, because you want a dog to, when they're an adult, hold it, a good 6-8 hour workday overnight and whatnot. And they don't, there's not an emergency situation if you're 10 minutes late getting home. They have that skill where they know how to have, I call it bladder control, but it's either end. It's just their ability to hold it comfortably and wait till the proper time if we give them enough options to do it, and take care of their business when those, windows of opportunities come up. So that's the potty training, and we'll talk more into detail about that. And then socialization. Here's another thing that I find, and I caught a lot of shit when I was on the Home and Family show a couple years ago, because we did a puppy segment, and I talked about rational socialization, which is a lot of people get scared to even go outdoors with their puppy for the first 4 months of their life. And I get it. We're not taking a dog to a dog park or bringing them around dogs that we don't feel are vaccinated or even well behaved. But by holding your dog up and not letting him see anything more than what comes into your house, I've even had vets tell them, have strangers take their shoes off when they come in the house, or wear booties, or don't have them around their other family members, well-behaved, vaccinated, dog, the older dog, which is ridiculous, because your dog isn't just going to catch rabies from just breathing the air. And yes, again, don't go where you think questionable dogs have gone to the bathroom or be around them. But if you have a friend or a family member who has a dog that's vaccinated and that's confirmed, get out there. Go find little puppy play groups. Go to your daycare that may pre-screen the dogs, and have some option for your puppy to at least just kind of see other dogs. Same as with people. Don't avoid going to the Starbucks with your dog. Take your dog to go pick your kid up at school. It's only going to overload them with the exposure. And yes, you want to make sure that you're not overstimulating them, so there's sometimes you have to teach them to sit when they're getting pet, and that's where basic training comes in. But just imprinting them with the fact that there's a whole world out there. There's tons of dogs. They see dogs on leash, they see dogs off leash, they see dogs in their house, out of their house. They see people come and go. They go to places where the people already are. That's all going to make them see this is the norm, and they'll be neutralized to it, versus like they got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, or when they first showed an aversion, it was like the owner didn't want to deal with it. You're going to see so many more social issues. And I'm telling you, because that's what keeps me busy with clients, is these problem behavior dogs. You do an intake, and most of the time it's the dogs could have been better taught or exposed when they were young, and it would have been very minimal issue, if at all, once they got older. This even goes for basic training. So we want to also teach our dog how to start listening to some basic commands that are going to apply properly when we need them in real life. So we don't have to worry about teaching them tricks right now. But if we want our dog to come, we've got to start on a very puppy level, teaching them how to associate that word with that action. even if it's close, even if it's a lot of luring with treats. Why? Because you want to build this. It's just like a child starts going to preschool because one day they're going to be in college. It's just a progression. And animals, they mature a lot quicker than humans. So we have to kind of jump on every day, every week as a window of opportunity if we want to do this by the book, or if we want to make sure that the issues or potential issues are addressed and become a non-event by the time the dog reaches adulthood. So training, imprinting, and again, we'll do plenty of podcasts. I have videos as well, and we'll have episodes in my series about basic obedience, I'm sure, too. And it just talks about, I know how to teach dogs tricks. I taught little Minnie over here how to skateboard, but it's fun. But I find because of why people call me, it's almost like that's not really my priority. But it's fun. You can teach your dogs tricks. But I would say make your training when you're imprinting with a puppy applied. When is my dog going to listen? Where, environment-wise, do I need him to listen? How do I teach them to listen consistently, not just when they feel like it? How do I teach a dog to focus when I ask them? So if a dog comes to me, not only do they take the treat and sit, but they have to hold that sit for a few seconds before they get released. Really building that attention so when you tell them a command, there's some ability to do it until it's completed to task, and there's a reliance upon it as you go practice out in the world. But right away, you can start imprinting. Day one is the first day you start training your dog. Every interaction is how you're training your dog. It's never not an association being made. Our dogs are more aware of this than us because they're so pure. They are just always taking in stimuli and following patterns. But we have to be a little bit more aware when we're making this foundation of how the relationship and everyday life associations and what we expose them to is, and that's being made now while they're early in life and most impressionable. So that's obedience, biting, mouthing, teething, whatever you want to see. Okay, so there is biting, chewing, teething, if you will, and a lot of times it's just they're puppies, they're mischievous, they're hyper, they're chewing furniture, they're chewing things. We address that, and that's something that you usually will redirect, or if a dog is triggered by when I come home he just starts chewing stuff, well, do training at that time, and it kind of redirects it, avoids the problem from manifesting, and it gives your dog a calmer mindset that usually prevents some of these things. But if a dog is doing it towards us, they're biting our hands, they're biting our feet, they're biting the leash, they're just it's more towards us. Even if it's in play, we have to show them that using their mouth on us is not appropriate. Right, again, from the start, they're going to see, is this something that I accomplish and get a reward for, or is it something that is not really going to get me too far because it's being prevented from happening, or it's being corrected when it does. So with puppies, you have to kind of, again, be more of a guide. You have to take more of that preventive approach. If you know that there's something that happens, I get on the floor, my dog wants to bite me, or if he has that look in his eye when we're playing, he starts biting me, you almost want to be ready for that because you want to have good timing. That's the most important part of dog training is timing and consistency, and you want to be able to address it so consistently with good timing that the message is clear. So I won't give too many examples again because I think we're going to have to do this more kind of as its own episode just to kind of get into all the details. But you want to just see kind of when your dog is most likely biting, or right when your dog's in that mode, you want to pick up on it, and you want to have training in place. And really training can be either redirecting, where it's giving the dog an alternative. So if your dog's biting, you try to redirect their mind from biting mode into focus sit mode, and you try to reward that so they kind of want to go into calm mode when that impulse to get like that is. There's also that preventative approach where they're in the calm mode predictably when they would be in that bitey, more overstimulated mode. So that just becomes the norm, and you reward that when they start doing that on their own. There's another school of thought, which I'm not really a fan of, which is just ignore the behavior and redirect it. I think the dog never gets in the mix enough and has the conscious ability to learn through that method. And then there's also the corrective, which we can use a little bit about, but sometimes we're giving too much emphasis. We think we're punishing or we're saying no, and it might be giving the dog too much attention for the wrong behavior. And sometimes we can be too aggressive with it. And there's a fine line because dogs do correct each other and they can show displeasure for what the other dog does, but rarely is it turning into an unbalanced situation. So with little puppies, you can use a deterrent like a bitter apple spray, something, and even if the dog's biting, you could spray it or pre-treat your hand or even the leash. And if they get discouraged, then when they ignore it, then you could give them the right thing or a treat like a chew toy, just so they learn better cause and effect. And if it's consistent, they can put that together. You still want to look into why is my dog more wanting to bite me by getting him more calm through the training, giving him a command to replace or react to it instead of always just correcting or redirecting. So try to be preventive, try to have a strategy, and just know, it's usually when you're coming and going, moving around the house, they're getting impatient because they know you're going to feed them or they don't get attention, or you're playing with them and then they get to that next level of getting revved up and they just start biting to kind of modulate their energy. It's just so, they want to kind of bite your hands like dogs bite each other behind the ears and on their body when they're playing. And we show them, you can do that with other dogs, get your fill. But with humans, we can play and do it, but the mouth really should not happen. It's a good investment to teach your dog that you're in control of that. You have certain boundaries as far as physical interactions. And most importantly, they're not getting comfortable putting their mouths on people. I don't care if it's friendly or he's just doing it gently. You're giving your dog a lot more reason that could lead to them putting their mouth in the wrong way when they're older on a person or a child, or so don't make excuses for it. There's ways that you can address it. Most puppies will mouth to certain degrees, but how you encourage it or discourage it from the get-go is going to minimize how much it lingers as an issue, and it could really well set a tone for good or bad behaviors that are more serious down the road later in your dog's life. Leash walking. A lot of puppies aren't used to being on a leash because we tend to avoid, even if it's around the house, let them get used to wearing a leash. We're not going to talk much about I think we did in episode 2, a little bit more of the walking, but just a regular flat collar. I'm not really a huge fan of harnesses because I find they backfire and lead to pulling and more stress on the dog over time and other issues like reactivity. But just walking them from room to room, up and down the driveway in the yard, just get a dog familiar with being on a leash, and even sometimes having them just stay in one place while you hold the leash so that they can just learn that they don't have to move every time you move. It's a real good way to build patience in your dog and teach a dog to get comfortable with it so that when you're out walking at some point, you've already prepped them for what that's going to look like without having any kind of resistance when you get out in the world with that. Let me think. We talk about socialization. Anything else, Jordan, about puppies? If you got a puppy, what would you ask? Have you ever had a puppy?
I haven't.
Have you ever had a dog, dude? I don't think we've discussed this.
I've taken care of friends' dogs for...
Have you ever had a dog as a kid?
No.
Your parents aren't dog people.
There was a fight. My dad always wanted to have a dog because he grew up with a dog, but my mom was against it.
So your dad was a cuckold?
I guess.
Okay, so anyway, so I guess we've covered all the puppy issues. You yourself as the viewer, listener, if you have questions, puppy or otherwise dog behavior related, email me, send me a video question. I think that'll be pretty cool. We can play it here on the podcast. Put it on social media, whatever it is. But if you have a puppy, there's a lot of work you can do now that will create a more balanced, content, happy dog, happy owner, and promote what we want a dog to do later in life if we can imprint them on a lot of these concepts now or expose them, like I keep saying. Let's see. Okay, I think that's quick overview for some puppy stuff. As far as news, I gave you in the front end. Please rate, review, subscribe, whatever that is. Subscribe on social media. My website is dogtrainingla.com. Facebook, it's the Dog Savant. And stay tuned. We're going to have the show, The Untrainables. It'll be out on Facebook. Jukin Media is producing it. That'll be next month. And thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great day.